Once upon a time there lived a very handsome man, who was not only handsome but rich. His name was Dozie, and he was of marriageable age. He was stupendously rich that he, the subject of suspicion and fear, as no woman in the village was willing to risk her life to marry him, despite the fact that he had everything that they wanted in a man. It happened that one day Dozie met a very beautiful woman who he loved with all his heart and decided to marry. However, on the night of their wedding, his bride mysteriously slept and died. This was a very devastating blow to Dozie, who could not get over the fact that the woman that he loved was no more. He mourned her death for years and found it difficult to remarry. Dozie spent a few years single, and his father, seeing how devastated he was, introduced him to another beautiful woman who he urged him to marry. Her name was Dozie, and she was the daughter of Mazi Osadebe, the popular village town crier. Dozie was not so keen on marrying Dozie because of the fact that she was in love with another, but her father, because of his long-standing friendship with Dozie's father, forced his daughter Dozie into marrying Dozie. He saw their marriage as a means of repaying Dozie's father back for all the help he had rendered to him in the past. So many years ago, when his daughter Dozie was still a child, she was chased out of school because of her inability to pay her fees. For months, Dozie remained at home, sad as she watched her mates journey to school every morning, leaving her all alone in their hut. This affected her so bad that her father resorted to begging the villagers for money to pay her fees. That was how he met Dozie's father, Mazi Inaya, who at the time was extremely rich. Mazi Osadebe pleaded for help, and Mazi Inaya provided him with the money he needed to settle all of his daughter's debts. Not only that, he also took care of their family and ensured that they never lacked anything. So when Mazi Inaya came forward to propose that Dozie be given out in marriage to his son Dozie, Mazi Osadebe made no objections because of all the kind things that Mazi Inaya had done for him in the past. However, one of Dozie's uncles, Mazi Ezianochi, began to cause problems for them. He warned Mazi Osadebe to keep his daughter away from Dozie, but Mazi Osadebe did not yield to his warning. Mazi Ezianochi was known to be a man who was jealous of Dozie and his father. He was Dozie's father's only brother, who was not only poor but miserable. He blamed his brother for all his misfortunes and had always hated Dozie because of how wealthy he was in comparison to his own son, who was a known tout in the village. Mazi Osadebe knew how jealous Mazi Ezianochi was of his brother, and paid no attention to him as he went ahead to give his daughter out in marriage to Dozie. Their wedding preparations began, and on the morning of their wedding, whilst Dozie was getting dressed, she slumped and died in the arms of her twin sister. The entire village was thrown into a state of confusion as the people wondered what could have happened to Dozie. This was the second woman who was dying, and the people could not help but wonder why. Dozie's twin sister, Ibe, could not believe that her sister was no more. She wept profusely, remembering all her discussions with Dozie before her demise. She remembered warning Dozie not to marry Dozie because of a terrifying dream she had a few days to the wedding. In the dream, she saw Dozie, who looked so distressed, trying to communicate with her, but she could not hear a word of what she was saying. Although Dozie was speaking to her in the dream, no sound was coming from her mouth. The dream terrified her, as she had a bad feeling that something terrible was going to happen to her twin sister, and Ibe, on seeing how her twin sister died mysteriously, decided to get to the root of her death. She knew that something was terribly wrong, and that her sister's death was not a mere coincidence. So, she made up her mind to uncover the truth. However, on the other end, Dozie's uncle Mazi Ezianochi went around the village, spreading rumors that Dozie and his father had a hand in the death of the two women. He called them ritualists who used innocent people for rituals, and with all that had happened, the people had no other option but to believe his assertions. They avoided Dozie like a plague, and his once vibrant and joyous life turned into a sorrowful existence filled with loneliness and despair. Dozie lived a life of solitude, with his reputation tarnished beyond repair. He became the subject of suspicion and fear, as no woman in the village was willing to risk her life to marry him, despite the fact that he had everything that they wanted in a man. His father approached several families on his son's behalf to find a wife for Dozie, but all the families turned him down, as they could not risk their daughter dying like the other women. Even Dozie did everything possible to find a woman, including begging for love, but no woman spared him a glance, as they feared for their lives. "You want to kill us like the other women," they said to him, as they laughed and called him unprintable names. Dozie lived a life of misery, constantly reminded of the women who he lost to the cold hands of death. Years passed, and Dozie remained single with no hope of ever finding love. Deep within his heart, he longed for a companion. Luck smiled on him one day when he met a young, beautiful woman who moved into their village newly. Her name was Chica, and she was new to their village. Chica came into Dozie's factory to look for a job, and Dozie, on sighting her, fell deeply in love with her. He spoke to her kindly, and Chica seemed to warm up to him as well. She got the job at his factory, and Dozie began to spend more time with her. The young women in the village, on seeing how close Chica was to Dozie, decided to warn her about his past. They told her about all that had happened to the women who agreed to marry Dozie in the past, and warned her never to consider marrying him, and Chica thanked them for their warning and walked away. However, she decided within herself to marry Dozie, despite the extensive warnings she had received from the villagers. Not long afterwards, Dozie asked for her hand in marriage, and she agreed in a heartbeat. Delighted at the news, Dozie informed his father that he had found a wife. His father was so excited to see the joy in his eyes as he jubilated with him and began to plan for the wedding. Dozie's uncle, however, did not seem too happy with the news. He approached Chica to dissuade her from marrying Dozie, saying that if she loved her life, she would leave Dozie alone, as marrying him would lead to her death. Chica looked Mazi Ezeanochi in the eyes and told him that she loved Dozie and was going to marry him. The wedding preparations began, and the entire village stood at alert to see what will happen. The people did all they could to dissuade Chica from marrying Dozie, but nothing they did worked, as Chica's mind was already made up. The eve of the wedding arrived, and Chica noticed something unusual happen. Late in the night, while she was asleep, she heard strange footsteps outside her hut and decided to check who it was. To her greatest surprise, she saw a figure at her door, placing a powdery substance at the entrance of her hut. Chica rushed out with courage and saw Dozie's father standing outside her hut. Mazia Enaya, on seeing that his evil plans had now been unveiled, tried to use his evil powers to kill Chica, but was shocked to see that his charms were backfiring. This was so shocking to him, as he never knew that Chica was a very powerful woman. She was a very powerful Christian woman, blessed with great powers. Debele's twin sister, Abier, met her on one hot afternoon and narrated her sister's tragic story to her. Chica, after listening to how Debele died on the morning of her wedding day, Chica decided to help Iber to get to the root of the matter. She approached Dozie, knowing all the rejections he had faced in the hands of women. She knew that getting him to marry her was going to be easy, owing to the fact that no woman was willing to marry him. Chica positioned herself in a way that will allow her uncover the person behind the evil, and was shocked to realize that it was Dozie's own father. She called out for help immediately, and the entire village gathered and was shocked to see Mazi Ehinaya kneeling in front of her hut. With no room for escape, Mazi Ehinaya confessed to all his heinous crimes. He revealed that he was a ritualist who used people for ritual. He also narrated how he killed the other women with the same powder which he placed outside their door at night. He said that once the women crossed the power, they were marked for death and died shortly afterwards. He also confessed to using his own brother Mazi Ezeanochi and his son for rituals, rendering them useless and poor. He said that he did all these to increase his wealth and ensure that he remained wealthy all the days of his life. The village was in shock as Mazie Anaya detailed his evil deeds. He explained that he had used his evil powers to ensure that every woman Dozie tried to marry died before the marriage was consummated. His ultimate goal was to keep his wealth and power, even if it meant sacrificing the lives of innocent people. However, Chica's strong Christian faith and her constant prayers had created a divine protection around her, which Mazie Anaya's evil powers could not penetrate. Dozie was so shocked to hear his father's confession. He could not believe that his father sacrificed his own happiness for wealth, not caring how his evil deeds affected his life for all these years. Not long after Mazie Anaya finished confessing, he slumped to the ground and died, and the entire village could not believe all that had happened. The elders, on hearing his heinous confession, decided that Mazie Anaya would not be buried in the village, but thrown into the evil forest to face the judgment of their ancestors. That was how the spirits of those who he had sacrificed, including Dabele, was set free from their bondage, and Ibia, her twin sister, found closure about her sister's strange death. His brother and nephew also began to regain all that they had lost for all these years, and Dozie ended up marrying Chica, who brought so much joy and happiness to his life. They fell in love genuinely after all that happened and decided to spend their lives together despite all that transpired. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please do us a favor by clicking on the like button to like this video, and also click on the subscribe button to subscribe to the channel, and when you do, please turn on the notification bell so that you will not be notified when next we drop a video.